Okay, guys, today we are going to see if we can improve this Malibu mansion that belongs to Kanye West. I found this on the internet. There's something about this property going on. I'm not sure what it is, but they said this belongs to Kanye West and it's in Malibu. So I thought we would see if we can improve this design using classical principles. So first off, what do we see here? Someone walking up to this house. What they're going to see basically is a big blank mass um, at the top here. You've got an opening here, a garage door, and you've got an opening here as an entrance and some glass. And then you've got this wood, concrete, glass, and steel. And so, really, a facade like this tells the viewer basically nothing as far as how the structure works. This looks like it's possibly a beam here, although more than likely this area is cantilevering off of a beam in back of it somewhere. And we have a big mass above it, mass here, glass. Really, it's not telling us anything. There's structure inside the wall, I'm sure, and a structural engineer may know what's going on, but just the average person isn't going to know what's going on, and it's kind of confusing. And so the first thing we see is that to enter either this garage or this door here, you have to go underneath this big mass, this big heavy mass. And things like that on a subconscious level, not necessarily on a conscious level. Consciously, I'm sure people think, oh, this was designed by an engineer, it's safe. I'm just going to go right in. But the subconscious brain, our reptilian brain, some call it, our hind brain, looks at that and sees a big, heavy mass over an entrance, and it just doesn't feel very comfortable. So, what can we do about something like this? So, I think, kind of backing up a little bit, one of the first things you see is glass for the entrance. And glass is obviously a very modern thing, and it's kind of a romanticized idea, I believe, in modernism, is the idea of a whole lot of glass. That does sound good in theory, but I think in reality, it's just not, it ends up not being very practical. And as you can see here, the way these houses are, probably the street is up here somewhere. People walk by along the front of this house, and then you have this glass here. And as you can see, it's completely covered. And I think with any modern home with a lot of glass, that's the first thing that people will do, is they're going to put up curtains and they're going to cover up a lot of the glass that, kind of messes with the public versus private relationship there. And so this is completely covered. So I think one of the first things we can do here is for the doorway, I think a door in this location with all this traffic and pedestrians and joggers and everything, we don't need a solid door. Nobody's going to have, we don't need a glass door. There's nobody who's going to really want glass seeing through the door, especially if someone's there and you're coming to answer it and they can see in your house and things like that. So the first thing I want to do is make this solid door, and I'm going to use the cues from the garage door. I'm just going to make it a wood door. So now we have both entrances, the car entrance and the human entrance, both kind of matching there. And then you have this big piece of glass here. And growing up, we'd always have sliding glass doors. I think that's the most simplest comparison you can get to some big piece of glass like this, is like a sliding glass door. And in my lifetime, I've seen two people run into glass doors, and I'm sure you've heard of stories of people getting very hurt running into glass doors. I've run into a glass door before. So just in general, just all glass can be a little bit tricky in some locations, especially where people tend to walk in and out. So to bring an alert to this glass, what I'd like to do is to create some mullions. And so to go ahead and put some mullions in there, so someone walking around or near that glass, they're going to see the mullions, and hopefully that'll be a sign that there is some glass there, so there's no accidents. And it could probably use some more, just to define it better, but I think for now we'll just leave it like that. So those are the first two things I do. And then, like I said, this blank wall really doesn't tell us anything. It gives us no peace. There's no idea of how is this thing being held up. It's just this kind of mass. And so one of the first things I did to kind of bring some order to this facade was to create some beams just with some banding. And that alone, as you can see, it starts to communicate. It starts to, I guess, talk to the viewer. You know, with this banding, this simple banding could be stucco banding, IFAS banding, especially up here. I start to define a beam. So over these entrances, now you have a beam going across, which it's symbolic, but as we'll discuss probably in another video, that's what architecture is a lot of times, is communicating to the viewer things like structure so they feel safe. And it doesn't necessarily register in their conscious brain, but in their subconscious brain. So now we have this beam here, so it feels safer to walk under, and it's holding up this larger mass here. And then this larger mass has a beam above it as well. And so now we see what is kind of holding up these masses. So then the second part is we have here this beam, and it's visually, being held up by these two, what read as columns. They're walls, but from the front they'll read as columns. And they look a little bit thin when compared to the beam. They might need a little bit of thickness. So one of the things I thought of for this one, just a simple solution, would be to kind of double up those columns. And that gives it a little more strength to these columns to be holding up all this mass. And we'll add some more columns, but for now, we're just going to double up these columns just to give a little impression of strength holding up this beam and this beam. It does encroach into the opening here of the garage door, and it encroaches into the opening here a little bit. It looks like this door might still be able to be open. I'm not sure the exact plan. So that could work, not sure. But so these aren't perfect solutions. These are kind of just ideas of what maybe the viewer, if they're designing something like this, something that they could think about. So we have those columns holding up this beam. Now I kind of want to do something similar here and show columns holding up this beam. Once again, it's symbolic and can be done with stucco, but again, it communicates to the viewer and gives them a peace of mind that this is built well and it is safe for them to enter. So I put a column on the left side and a column on the right side. And now this is kind of a similar situation. You have kind of taller columns, and it's just a little bit thin for the beam above it. And so what I want to kind of do is go ahead and copy what I did at the first floor and just put these beams above each other. And even that reads well. It looks like you're stacking, which gives comfort to the viewer once again. Then we'll put a double up on the right side as well. Okay. And now this is starting to come together. This is starting to look pretty good. This is a little off center, but by the width of it, it's kind of reminding me of a column here because it's got the same width and it goes from floor to ceiling. So I'd like to kind of play with that, make this be something kind of fun to play with and kind of assume that this was a column. And then to bring some strength to this beam here, go ahead and put another column here. And these are starting to read as being in the center of this beam. It might be a little bit off, but I think visually, very quickly, it does look like it is does look like it's in the center. So now you have this rhythm of two columns, one of them being the playful column, It's kind of a disappeared column, and the two columns. So you keep that rhythm. And then at the bottom, once again, I think this beam looks like visually it's holding up a lot of weight here, and it'd be nice, it'd give some comfort to feel like this beam is being well supported as well. So one of the things I started to do here is I'll take these ideas of columns and I'll bring these down too, just like I did on this side over here. So what I'll do is I'll bring a column right under this window here, then a column under this stucco column as well. And these look like they would be freestanding, and then these would be stucco, and these would be freestanding, and all these up here would be all stucco columns to match. So now we have this symmetrical mass up here, and then this asymmetrical mass down here. And to try to kind of bring a little bit of symmetry to this down here, we've got these two columns, I feel, holding up this area and aligning with these columns. So it seems like this area needs its own set of columns. See, these are serving this. We need something serving this side. So bringing in two more columns here, keeping the same rhythm that would be here, just keeping the same rhythm. So now these two columns relate to this entrance. These two columns, sets of columns, relate to this entrance. And these all relate to each other. Again, I see that the opening for the garage is being encroached on. And so that's a bit of an issue. But again, these are just ideas for now, and possibly ideas for other projects, not necessarily this one. But and so now what I like about this is these two sets of columns are for this entrance, and these columns, visually, it ends up looking like they're landing kind of in the middle of this section of the beam. So I'm starting to create some symmetry throughout, which brings comfort as well to the viewer. And then finally here, just to break up this mass a little bit and show its bring down the scale a little bit, I did kind of a similar thing here with the banding going across, simulating a beam, and then just some smaller columns here. And you got the width of these two columns matching the width of this one column below, just to kind of finish it off and bring everything together. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking for this. And you can take it a little further. Right now you've got just bare concrete. So one thing you could do to this would be to stucco and paint it just like the neighbors have. And so that's what I'm kind of trying to show here. I use the concrete as the background, so it kind of doesn't show as very smooth stucco, but I think you get the idea of if this was painted white. Because if you take it away, what you might not realize is the warmth of this wood for the garage door and the warmth of this entry door is really doing wonders for this project. If you can imagine this wood not being here, you'd have concrete, glass, and steel. And those three, man-made materials tend to be more cold emotionally, whereas natural materials like wood and stone tend to be considered warm. So this little bit of wood really helps to make this from being a completely cold building. And I think stucco and paint would help to liven it up too. And that's kind of what I've done here. And then just one more thing I did because of these two masses. There's so many things you could do with these. You could, add stucco medallions or something kind of crazy like that. But to just keep with the simple, actually kind of primitive kind of look of this building, I thought, why not, in keeping with the beach theme and things like that, take some paint and just paint kind of a sky blue, a really light blue, to kind of play off the sky here and really kind of lighten this whole second mass, it almost reads as sky beyond, for a split second there, which really helps to lighten it because now it only looks like it's this simple structure rather than a giant mass. And it's something you could do even if you don't paint it white. This maybe you could have this kind of very LA look with the exposed concrete and then maybe just the blue here, and then you have the kind of the gray and the blue and the brown from the wood, and I don't know, just kind of has kind of an LA vibe to it, I guess you would say. But yeah, that was what I was thinking. Let me know what you think. Hopefully that helped.